Good evening. Welcome to the live Audiophile Roundtable. I'm Steve Westman. This is a fun one today. We're talking about pet sounds, but not in the usual way. This is the new release from Interscope and Capital's Definitive Sound Series, One Step. And what's interesting here is that the direction that was chosen. This isn't about going back to 66 and trying to recreate something. This is built around the tapes tied, if you guys are familiar with the 1970s Brothers Records era, which a lot of us know has always had a real natural and balanced presentation of this album. Some know that. And instead of guessing what was done here, we've brought in all the people that made it happen. So joining me tonight, Grover Biery, who produced the reissue and is directly involved in locating and working with these tapes. We've also got Chris Bellman from Bernie Grundman Mastering, who cut this. So we can talk about how this was approached from the tape through to the lacquer. And of course, Michael Fremer from Tracking Angle, bringing that listening perspective, someone who spent years with different versions, and I'm talking different versions, lots of different versions of pet sounds, who understands it and who can compare tonight. So this isn't really about speculation. It's not. This is about conversation and what was done and why it was done that way and what it actually sounds like. It's a true all analog chain, one-step process, limited run, all of that's part of it. But for me, it comes back to the same thing. How does it present? How does the music present? Does it feel cohesive? Does it feel natural? Does it let the arrangements and the emotion come through the way this record should? So we got to get right into it. Grover Biery, Michael Fremer, Chris Bellman. Welcome, guys. This is a big day, Grover. You did it. You got it to the finish line.
Yay, us. And a lot of other people too, by the way,
Well, like reach out. Let's talk about those people first. I mean, I know you've got two on here right now, but who was all involved with this? I mean, tell us about that.
Well, there's always the DSS team that sit at Interscope Capital, right? So someone in particular, Michael Howell is Senior VP of A&R on the Interscope Capital catalog side. He is very involved in everything, helped find the tapes, helped sit down and go through it all. And, there was also a 19232 transfer we checked out. And, Greg Brink is, he's great. And he sits there and he's got great ears and can listen to all these records with us. So it's not just my thing and my ears. That's why Michael's here. That's why Chris, we all just it's collaborative. And then honestly, something that I think doesn't happen very often is that Levi Seitz that does the DSS on the digital side was also involved in conversations directly with Chris during the process. We took a lot of advice and conversation from him as well. A guy named Gary Johnson, who owns Rockaway Records, is the first person who turned me on to the 1972 Brother Records pressing. That's years ago. And then Michael and I started talking it like a long time ago. None of this was like a few weeks ago or a few months ago. This is something that took years to get to this point, right? So, there's that's sort of like the guy who sort of allows all this to happen is, a guy named Xavier Ramos at Interscope Capital. I mean, everyone's supportive. All the senior executives there, they all support this idea of really truly trying to create the best sounding version of these records. It's pretty great that a big company does this, honestly. So that's kind of the warm up.
That's because vinyl is $1 billion business now. $1
billion. So Chris, when Grover approached you and you had these 72 tapes in your hands, what were your first thoughts?
I thought, wow, this is actually really going to happen, because it was doubtful for quite a while.
Yeah.
And then we had a lot of tapes. I don't know if we want to start down that road. We had a lot of tapes to audition to come to a conclusion. And you want to start that?
Well, we had tapes, and we also had all the pressings, of all the records.
We had some digital too, as I recall.
Yeah, and none of it was a, this is all a passion play for, I think, all of us, right? Like, we just want to try to get to the place where we're able to deliver to fans what we hear in the studio. And when you start to think about all the different sources, so Mr. Fremer has all the sources. I don't have all of them, but I've got 2 originals. I've got the DCC classics. I've got Chad's, and of course I've got the original white label promo from '72 of the twofer with Carl and the Passions, and then I've got the other brother release that came out separately in '74 with the brown cover, which also came out in '72 in Canada. And then from a tape perspective, Mark Lennett was nice enough to let us borrow a tape that he had, which simply said 1978 on it. As it turns out, it was identical to the one we had. And here's what we were never quite able to really ascertain. And you can see it when you get the artwork and you see the package. The actual tapes say 1975 on them, on the box. But what we really couldn't figure out if that was maybe an inventory date, because everything was coming back from Reprise, who distributed Brother Records. And so the actual cover of the tape box says Reprise Records on it. So we didn't know if it was an inventory, but whatever the case, we could never find what was technically a 1972 original master. That's why in all the literature I say circa 1972 original analog tape. But what we can say is unequivocally it did match sonically the 72 record, the white label promo. And not only that, but Chris identified something really kind of important in the clues as we were trying to figure things out. The space between the tape, the songs on the tape matched the record identically. So when Chris started the record and the tape at the same time, they just were flawlessly at the same pace.
Grover, can I put up the tape boxes? Are we allowed to do that tonight?
I think so. They're going to be in the package and everything. So
I'd like to put it up so maybe Michael and Chris can look at this right now, and the folks can get it firsthand.
I didn't put it in my story today, but I will tomorrow.
So tell me, Michael, Chris, what are we looking at here? What are the folks seeing at home?
Well, you're looking at the tapes that we used. It's an EQ Dolby copy, obviously. I can't see the date on it myself, but
it says 75.
So November 19th, 1975, it says.
Yeah. Okay, so this was one of many tapes, as Grover just said. All the other tapes were respectable, but they didn't really match that pressing that we were trying to aim for. That original pressing that Grover had was sort of our Bible. We were aiming for that. And this tape almost matched it perfectly. So we started thinking, this has got to be the one, because we don't have any other choice. And it worked perfectly. That's about all I can say. It was the one. And it was pretty obvious once we played.
People are going to see where it says use the original master, use for copies only, use master for lacquers. And they're going to say, well,
what's that mean?
Where's that master? Well, that's the problem. That master,
I don't think question
anymore, or someone has it and then they're hiding it or something.
Yeah.
And
that nomenclature on these tapes is very common on Warner Brothers Rhino stuff, where they had a separate copy that they used for making in those days cassettes and whatever other sources or destinations that they wanted to make. And then they had the original master at that time, but the original master, as Michael just said, is not available.
I think also we couldn't figure out also what did they mean the original 72 master, or did they mean the 66 master? And not only that, but also I think there's a couple other points that are relevant to this whole thing, right? So in 1965, I think the Beach Boys put out 3 records. they were hustling this record. You know, it was being put together really quickly. We saw production notes all the way until the end of March, early April, for a record that came out in May. And keep in mind, you know, no one at the label even liked the record when they delivered. You know, when it was done, no one really liked it, and nobody was caring that much. It seems. This is from like all the different information we gathered along the way. And also still in early 66, the single was still much more important than the album. The album as we know it today was just beginning with the Beatles. You know, it had been around for a few years, right? But it was a singles world, which is why I think Wouldn't It Be Nice and Sloop John B, the fades on the album are so fast, more like a radio thing, because you were bringing the next record in quick. And it was much more a mindset of singles as opposed to album, which to me makes it even more remarkable that Brian Wilson created this record to begin with, honestly. It was against all odds.
And mono too. You know, he started writing this in January with Tony Asher. They started writing it in January and it was finished in April, basically, which is amazing. But that was a mono world back then too. And so the fact that this was a mono record was not like some big thing. That's how records were made at that point in time. Very few records were stereo in 1966, believe it or not, for rock.
So Michael, I want to ask you this. So I've got the test press in here. You have one as well. Thank you,
Yes.
Grover, for that. It sounds phenomenal. You've got a lot of different copies. So when you listen to this test press for the first time, what did you compare it to, and what were you hearing different than from the other sources you have?
Right. So my first source is this CD that came out with the 30th anniversary, because I felt that the timbral balance of this CD was very honest. It wasn't hyped up in any way whatsoever. It's kind of hard sounding, like CDs sound to me. I'm not a big fan of CDs, but this was an honest rendering of the record. So I played that. Then I played the original. And again, like Tom said, the original was a rush job. They didn't like it. That's the worst cover I've ever seen. It's horrible. And they didn't even try to integrate any of this into the cover art. It's just like two separate things. But anyway, the sound of this record is pretty miserable. It doesn't sound as good as that CD, I can tell you that. And then I went to, for the hell of it, I went to the Duophonic British pressing that I have, which has the fold over. And, you know, it's useless because the Duophonic is two bad mono channels that have been mixed up with echo and they're out of phase. And then I went to these. And the crazy thing is I had this Carl and the Passions record for quite some time without even realizing that this was on the back. I really didn't realize. I saw the picture. I said, "Oh, there's a picture of Pet Sounds on the back." Okay, but for whatever reason, I thought it was a 2-record set, and then I got this one. All right, and then I got this is the DCC, which when I reviewed this, I thought this was the best that I'd heard. And it probably was at that point in time. Well, it wasn't because the other one's better, but I made a mistake. People make mistakes. And then I went to the one that Chad did, and I've got a theory about why that is loaded with bass, way too much bass. And then
do we get to hear the theory tonight?
Yes. Want to hear it now?
Guys, do you want to hear the theory now? I think everyone does. Of course.
Right. So this record, in retrospect, has a bump in it. It's got a lower mid-bass bump, and it does this to the whole record is like this. Now, my system wasn't as good as it is now when I reviewed these records. You put the first drum beat, the way this record starts is a drum hit, and on this record the drum hit sounds like it's in a big can, boom, and the whole rest of the record sounds like that, and there's too much of that throughout the whole record. I think when Chad's was done, and Chad was not done from the original tape either. It was done from the best source that he could get, which when you listen to this compared to this new one, there's no comparison. I think when this was cut, and you know, Kevin might beat me over the head, but I think he used this as a reference because he was involved with this one too. And you know, Steve Hoffman is the mastering guy, but Kevin did the cutting because Steve doesn't cut. And I think he may have used this as a reference for this and just made it even more bass heavy. I mean, the bass on this is it's so overpowering. It's I don't even know why they did that. So I had all those, and then I played.
I have a theory on that.
Okay, go, Chris. What's your theory?
Sorry, not to interrupt.
I need to hear this.
Please interrupt so they don't accuse me of interrupting you when Chris Bellman watches.
No, because Grover and I had that same comment about the bottom. Remember, Grover? And I was thinking, the reason they did that is because there's a hell of a lot of top on this record as well. And I think they were trying to balance out something, but it really didn't call for it. There's two ways to make a record duller or brighter. You can take the bass away, or you can add the top. And so I think they were adding bass to try to make up for the extreme amount of top. But it's really well done high end.
So Chris, we know that the tape, and I'll go back to it, we know that it's EQ'd. So what were your, when you're making your mastering choices, having an EQ'd copy? I mean, how different of choices do you make with an EQ'd copy?
Well, first, as I always do, I always run them roughly parallel, like Grover said, to the source that we're comparing. And I'm comparing, and it's just matching like friggin' perfectly.
Wow.
And so there was nothing to do. So my next job was to stay out of the way. So what I did is I hot rodded my system. So basically this record is cut from the tape to the lathe. No console, nothing. It's straight off that tape, right out of the Dolby.
As pure as you can get, Grover.
You can't get closer.
Yeah. I think also when you see EQ, I think I saw a comment, somebody said, oh, an EQ master, who cares, or something like this. And it's like, that's just wrong thinking, because Brian, all I ever try to do with the DSS series or Because Sound Matters or my own label, is I just try to represent what the artist wanted. I mean, I used a 192.24 EQ file for Prince Purple Rain. Prince delivered only an EQ master. Brian and the Beach Boys in 1972, when they had Total Control, those tapes you're looking at, that's what they wanted. That's what they did.
That's the point. And the point is that I made in what I wrote today is that when Sunflower came out, which was the first record from Brother Records on Warner Brothers on Reprise, they had complete control. They did a stereo recording. They even have on the back, they tell you about the Hafler surround sound process. They even tell you that it's a real stereo recording. It's not like mono pan pod across the soundstage. It's real stereo. They were paying attention to sound. And so when they did Pet Sounds over again, 1 year later or 2 years later, I'm sure they were supervising that at Artisan Sound, and they got what they wanted on that lacquer and on that recording. And so that record is what the Beach Boys and Brian Wilson wanted out of Pet Sounds. I'm 100% convinced of that. And it sounds very similar to the timbral balance of this CD, which was also done with Brian's supervision, and Joe Gassford and Mark Linnett did this. So it's the same timbral balance. You could have pumped the bass up, Chris will tell you, as much as you wanted on a CD, you could just go for it. They didn't do it. This is very natural sounding, and what's coming out now is as natural sounding as this. The bass is not overdone, and you might say, gee, it needs more bass, but it's what they wanted on that 72 record and what's on this 30th anniversary CD. So I'm quite convinced that what you're going to get, if you buy that, is exactly what the Beach Boys and Brian Wilson wanted you to hear, but only processed better than ever before with Chris's cut and with the VR 200, 900 vinyl and the rest of what they did.
So you heard it here tonight in the Live Audiophile Roundtable. Michael Fremer is saying that the Beach Boys, the Definitive Sound series, One Step, is artist intent. That's what I'm hearing from you.
Is artist what?
It's artist intent.
Yeah, it's what they. Yeah, I think it's what they wanted.
It's what Brian wanted.
Yeah. And by the way, we also, while we were doing this, at one point, Chris did boost the bass a little bit in the very beginning when we started the process. Yeah. And it's so great because you got the record and you got the tape and you can go back and forth and you can, it's wonderful to be able to do that. And ultimately we were like, no, We just want what is exactly on that tape. And so even though it's an EQ'd tape, I like to think of it that it's still a flat master, right? Because we didn't do anything to what was presented to us, you know? And I don't know. I just feel, you know, I've got all the same records that Michael was showing and stuff. And with this new record, there's no doubt that there are Carol K bass lines that you just never heard before. There's just no, I mean, just put on each record and then put on this, and you know, it's just the way it is.
There's
And
more.
I think what I'm hearing from the test pressing is like no artificial push on it at all. It just sounds so authentic.
When first time anybody who was paying attention heard this record, that's what they said. That's what they heard. No artificial push. It's just there, and you can see right into the mix.
By the way,
and that's what I was hearing, Grover. I listened to this 3 times my test pressing after I received it, and exactly, Michael, that's what I'm hearing. In the mid range is there, right? It's live. The vocals sound full and just natural, and that's what I got out of this with my 3 times I listened to it on the. This is just test pressing, and we all know. Wait till the actual record comes out. It's going to sound even better, right, Chris, than the test pressing.
Yeah, and what an interesting thing that I noticed when I was actually cutting the lacquers, Grover wasn't there, is that you can tell this record was built and mixed for that mono format. It's designed for that. I don't know how. I haven't heard the stereo in like decades, so I couldn't comment on the stereo, but I feel like it's so much more authentic hearing it in mono, because the mono is just it's got depth. It's got all sorts of stuff that you don't expect to come out of a mono signal. So it was a revelation.
Well, I think what Michael was mentioning, right? It was a Grover or Michael. I mean, this is obviously pre the FM radio wars where, okay, everything has to be stereo. I mean, this is where they took a lot of time with the mono, right?
Yeah, and that's
not the stereo.
Stereo records, to a great degree, were actually mono records.
Secondary.
Were intended to be mono that were left and right and hard left and hard right. Yeah. You know, the early Beatle records were not really stereo, and so mono was what it was, and that's why a lot of people are going back to mono. Jazz records from the 50s and 60s that came out in quote unquote stereo, people prefer the mono because they realize that it was meant to be a cohesive mix that has space and depth in this direction, and it doesn't need to be ping-ponged left and right.
Well, it's exactly, Grover. It's more like in Chris, like it's more smooth and it's more balanced on this one is what I'm hearing as well. And that's what you're getting. And is that maybe part of it too? Of course, Michael, you mentioned the Neotech vinyl. That's going to help. And of course, the one-step process. I mean, we're getting as close to the tape as possible with this one-step, aren't we?
Yes. That's the beauty of the one-step. It gets you closer than you've ever been before.
Yeah. Also, just because I see people in the comments asking some things, right? So you can pre-order the record at shop.capitalmusic.com, and it's free shipping if you go to the Capitol store.
How long will that last for?
I think it'll last for a while, but I honestly don't know. But it's there now. And so just so people know, I think it's shop.capitalmusic.com. And it's free shipping. And also this One Step will be the first DSS record that ultimately goes to indie retail as well. That'll be probably more like early to mid-June by the time it gets into stores. But yeah, pretty stoked on that too. And of course, the usual suspects.
I think the comparison between the other one that's coming out and this will be very interesting. Very interesting.
There'll be a lot of, I bet you there are going to be a lot of shootouts, Michael.
Oh, one other interesting note. The other sources that we had, other tape sources, all had cutting notes in them from various engineers over the years. The one we used did not.
Interesting.
For what it's worth.
Interesting.
Doesn't mean it wasn't used at some point, but
I just put the website up for everyone to see. This is the Capitol website with the free shipping, right, Grover?
Yeah. I was confused for a second. I thought we went to Beach Boy heaven.
This Chris probably prepared.
Can we just go back for 1 second, because I think Chris said something a few minutes ago that should be repeated again, because it's with all the different conversation, because there is the vinyl file version coming out, great. There's the Zoetrope. There's all, you know, it's a celebration of the 60th of one of the great rock records of all time. Buy them all, you know. But you said something earlier, Chris, about, you know, how it's straight to the lathe, right? Can you kind of just reiterate that again? I know you said it before, but it's such an important point, right? How we got to what we're hearing, you know?
Okay. So basically in a somewhat normal setup chain, which I guess normal is not even a good word to use anymore. But you come out of the machine, you go through the console, and you can set levels, and you can change EQ, and you can do compression, and blah blah blah. We did not need any of that, is what the decision was after a couple hours of listening. We didn't need that. So I like to say, okay, why run through the board? Why do any of that? Let's go straight as possible. So I eliminated the console. I don't even think there was a de-esser. I can't remember. Yeah, so basically it came out of the Dolby and it went straight to the lathe, because the level coming off of the tape, trying to remember, was perfect for cutting. It was just like a match made in heaven. It all worked, which is another sort of a sign from the gods of Beach Boys that this was the one.
I think that's what they wanted. They brought a tape to artists and that was ready to cut. I think that's what they did.
Yep.
Yeah.
Did that answer that?
Yes, thank you. I just kind of wanted to clarify that a second time, because I think it's unusual and it's really an important point, as people are gonna. I mean, this record's got almost 400 different variants of this record, right?
Correct.
And so it's important that people realize this is all coming from years of passion and wanting to do this and dreaming about doing this, and and then actually having the source that we wanted. Everything just lined up. And again, I think Chris, you said this earlier as well, but I mean, it almost didn't happen. Levi was pushing hard for it to happen. He ultimately didn't even cut it. He's such a mensch.
He's a fan.
Yeah, he's a fan.
Kudos to him.
Yeah, I just think it's something where, as all the debates begin, I think what Chris was just saying becomes super relevant to these super audiophile folks to understand this is really as close as you're going to get, in my opinion, to hearing what they really wanted you to hear.
So I know there's a lot of questions, Michael. Michael, the vinyl file versus the definitive sound series, right? The mono, what source was used with the definitive sound versus the vinyl file. I want to address that. It doesn't have to be right now, but I just want to put that out there. Go ahead, Michael.
Well, we don't know exactly what they used, because they used whatever they used one of these tapes, and whatever tape they used was not the master tape, because the master tape doesn't exist as far as we know. They're all copies. Chad did his. It was best available source, and so
they didn't use the one that we used.
Didn't use the one you used. But what I find interesting is when the original record came out in '66, Brian Wilson and the Beach Boys, none of those people had anything to do with that record. Yeah. They weren't involved in that process. So that record came out, somebody cut it, who knows who and why they did what they did, and they probably didn't care that much about it. So we know that the first version that came out that was really authorized by the Beach Boys and what they wanted was the one that came out in '72 on Carl and the Passions, because that is what they wanted. And they took it to Artisan Sound. I mean, Artisan Sound is a very famous place. We don't know who cut it at Artisan Sound, do we?
I was gonna ask you that. You don't even know that, huh?
No.
Interesting.
Oddly enough,
could have been Kevin.
Kevin used to work at Artisan Sound.
Kevin.
Did anyone talk to Kevin? Would he have remembered back in '72 or '7? I guess it's '72 or '75, right? I mean, we're debating
72
that.
was the first one.
Yeah.
No,
that might have been right about the time he started. I'm not sure.
Yeah, who knows?
Wow.
Doesn't matter, because the Beach Boys went in there and said, this tape is prepared for you. That's what we want. Cut this tape, because that's what they did, obviously. Yeah.
By the way, it's the first time the record got reissued. It's not like this was a huge success in 1966, so they did it again in '68 or '70. Right. And so I feel like they actually used their capital master, right, to get to this point,
So how are the tapes found then? I mean, after all these years, I mean, how'd that all come about?
I think the truth of the matter is they were sitting there all along. It's just that nobody really ever knew or cared that much about it.
Yeah.
They were on an Excel document, and and ultimately the team found them. Michael, that I was mentioning at the top of the show, he does massive due diligence. There's another guy on the archive team, Dileepan, who's amazing. I've mentioned him before. It's definitely a team effort that gets these records out the door, which is why it's so great. I'm not licensing the record. I'm doing it inside of Interscope Capital for all these reasons. If I was licensing this record, which they would never license it out anyways, most likely, but if let's say they did, I would not have access to this team of experts. And so it's a big advantage to be doing this in-house, honestly. So it wasn't hard. They were sitting there. I don't know. I will tell you there were some other clues, like the original album numbers, catalog numbers were also on the tape box. And then there's a weird number that's on there. I want to say.
Here, I'll get the tape box out again.
I'm looking at a copy. It's a foul copy. It's let me see if I can see it.
Can you see it on the screen?
2134.
Yeah. Or I see that there. File number 2134, top right. Tape speed 15 IPS.
So what I do know is that there's a digital source in the Warner archives of the 72 tape with that exact file number. So it's not a catalog number. It's something only internal. And that was another clue that led us down like the path of thinking like, okay, this is most likely what was used. And that file number, again, that's another, it's all these relationships, right? I was lucky enough to be able to call someone and just get that answer really quickly. I was hoping they might have actually had a source, but everything got sent back. Everything came back over Universal or might have gone to Sony for a minute. Anyways, yeah, that was another clue though that led us down this path for sure.
Chris, how many times have you gotten a tape box and it says, do not use this tape, and that's the one that you want to use? How often does that happen?
Tons.
Yeah.
Tons, because they can't locate the original or, whatever. It happens.
Or sometimes it is the original and they don't want you to use it, but now you're using it. Does that happen too?
Yeah, exactly. That could happen. Not that I would know that, but
right.
Yeah.
I think, Grover, what's exciting about, for I guess everyone, audiophiles and the viewers tonight, I mean, for years I heard about that twofer, right? The Carl and the Passions, how great it sounded. Everyone was raving about it for years, and of course, if you go to Discogs today, it's a lot of money. Now you're able to get a fresh copy, freshly cut by Chris Bellman, one step on the Neotech vinyl. I mean, this is a real treat. It really is.
Thank you. I feel the same way. I'd feel the same way if I had nothing to do with this. By the way.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I would be like, okay, I got to get this, So, yeah. And I also, we talked about this at the top of the show as well, but I think it's worth mentioning again how, we got to this end in a collaborative way over a long period of time. And I think sometimes the best shit happens when you're forced to take your time. They were rushed to put out Pet Sounds. We were not rushed. I think Michael and I started talking about this. I know it was a few years ago,
Yes.
and Gary Johnson and I talked about it even longer than that, I saw a question asking about Brian's passing, and yeah, we did kind of pause on moving forward. We started about a year ago in the very beginning, and then we paused and, just to answer that one comment.
So did you pause out of respect, or what was happening at that point?
Yeah. I think we just all paused out of respect. I mean, it's not really my decision necessarily, but yeah, we weren't that deep in it yet, honestly, So everything just paused.
How long did it take you to find that tape? You didn't find the tape right away, right? You knew there was a tape because the record came out in 72 and 76, but the tape wasn't there right away, right?
No, but I honestly, I think between Michael Howe, Dilipin, Greg, myself, we all get these files, and we all, you just have to take the time. And in the case of Pet Sounds, it's big. It's got every single, it's got, it's a long document. And at some point they were listed there, and then they were actually there, And by the way, Mark Lennett was super helpful too. I spoke to him for hours about this, and so none of these decisions or the making of this version of Pet Sounds was done without, he's been more involved in Pet Sounds than almost anybody in the last 30 years or more. And so it would have been foolish not to reach out to him, and he's very generous with his time and his knowledge, and it was super helpful, so yeah, try to include everyone in this.
Question from one of the viewers, and this is a good one because it's a one step. I mean, maybe Chris can answer this as well. There was 6,000. There's going to be 6,000 copies of this coming out. Now, with a one step, you're cutting a lacquer every 500. You have to cut it new every 500, or what is it? What is the number?
It varies.
Okay.
And so, at the very moment, we've done 9.
Okay, so 9 passes of the tape, I guess, is what the question is as well.
Probably more passes to get the 9. Chris would know better than me, but not many more.
Yeah.
The tape's in good shape. That's one of the things.
Yeah, I was going to say, how are the tapes though, Chris? I mean, they're probably pretty minty.
They're minty, but they're actually in really good shape. They were stored properly, thankfully. They did not need baking, as I recall. I'm trying to remember. I think they were in great shape. Kudos to whoever was protecting those things.
Yeah.
So then what, Michael,
there was probably about 11 to 12 passes on that tape to get everything said and done.
So Michael, whatever happened to the AAA stereo tapes then? Like what happened to those ones years back? I mean, they're missing, right? It's all digital now?
I don't know, because I wasn't. Well, no, there was no stereo tape that was all analog, because Mark Lennett took the multi-track and mixed it down to digital, as far as I know.
So that's okay. And so it's always been a digital source.
Yeah, then he put it back to tape, and then they cut from the tape. But I don't really care about that mix, truthfully. I'm not nothing against Mark Lennett. I don't care about that mix. I care about the mono mix. I think that's what this record is,
Well, I like it too. The way Brian cut it is, I think, sort of the slogan that Grover's using as well for this release. Absolutely,
that's because it's on the original versions, right?
Exactly.
It's amazing.
I mean, he had so much more clout with his own label. You can see it kind of everywhere.
Yep.
I mean, I'm sure it really wasn't Reprise sitting around going, "Hey, I got an idea. Let's put these records together." Right? It was like a marketing thing. It was like something to launch Brother. It was like it was something that I'm sure that they wanted to do. Maybe it was somebody's idea at Warner, but I don't know.
So, right here it says, this recording is pressed in monophonic sound the way Brian cut it. It's right there. Because that was their label. They were in charge of this, and they wanted
put it up again. Sorry, it was blocking. Your name was blocking. So put that back up again. I didn't see that part. Up. There you go. Thank you. I love it.
I wish I had taken out my copy of Sunflower so you could see all the notes there about stereophonic sound versus, sound field and surround, the half-floor surround sound, and all the stuff that audiophiles love was on a Beach Boys record that sounded phenomenal, and it wasn't successful at all.
And by the way, anybody that buys this record, make sure you read the Dead Wax. Not just for my CB, but there's other stuff.
Oh, you know what? By the way, this actually came in the original twofer as well. One side.
In the promo one, or was that
it was only in the promos actually. Now that you mentioned it
looks like a Warner Brothers promo thing to me.
Yeah, maybe it was in the promo, because it is my version is of this.
I've got a bunch of those in a lot of records. Mine doesn't have that.
Hey, when we're talking talking about mono, stereo, etc. You know, I will say, I just got my monoblock VTL monoblock amps retubed, and I got all new, modern, updated circuitry in it. And so, having listened to Pet Sounds, the test pressing of this record a bunch of times with a really good Boulder, I think it was, amp, like great, you know. But man, putting these things back in action, I mean, the sound stage on this thing, it really at times is very 3D sounding as a mono record.
It is.
You know, and it's not hype and hyperbole. It's just what you hear. I don't know what else to say.
So I'm going to ask this to Michael. So folks get the, this is the test pressing. Once you get your copy, should you have a mono cartridge? Would that make it sound that much more in the room present?
If you play a mono record with a stereo cartridge, you're going to get all the vertical modulations as noise and rumble. So that's a problem. So if you're going to play a mono record with a stereo cartridge and you don't have a mono switch on your preamp and you want to play this record properly, you should get a Y connector and Y out the signal before it gets to your preamplifier or your integrated amplifier. Like, do it right out of the turntable. Yep. Y it out, and then you'll cancel out the vertical modulations to get rid of all the rumble. So try that, and I think you'll like that better.
Then try it both ways. See which one, but obviously do the Y. Absolutely.
Well, it'll definitely be better when you Y out the vertical modulations, because all you get is rumble.
Yeah. One of the legendary analog guys of all time, Brooks Burdian, he once told me, if you were a real mono guy, you would only listen to one speaker.
That's true, because otherwise you're doubling up the number of speakers that you have.
Yeah.
When you look at the original mono record, the guy was sitting there with one loudspeaker and mixing it with one woofer and whatever else, and then all of a sudden you're playing it back with twice as much bass.
I asked Bruce Spotnick that as well. I said, isn't it just good to listen to mono in one speaker? And he agreed with me as well. I think he's mentioned that more than once. It's interesting.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
We're getting a little nerdy now. Sorry
about that.
We started nerdy. Don't kid yourself.
Okay, hang on though. But okay, I mean, we know it's you passed the tape a few times. Was Grover like really like we're looking for perfection on this? Is that why you guys cut a few more test pressings, Chris? Like, what was going on?
What was going on? We didn't make more test pressings. I made a tweak. That's what it was. I remember. You know. There was some de-essing I had to do on one song, and I made a change. So I recut one side.
I think it's important too that people might not understand this. They might just assume it or whatnot. But, the way we do it is, we get one test pressing done and we just make sure we get everyone to sign off on it, and make sure everything's right. And then we continue with the lacquers. Right. And so, it's a real process. It takes a lot of time. But on this particular record, we were so confident in that we just rolled, basically. I was literally driving lacquers to RTI from Chris, which is another whole, you want to get really nerdy, we could, but I mean, that's a whole other thing, like they were in the process in about an hour and a half, however long it took to go from Hollywood to Camarillo. And they were waiting for me at RTI, bless them, and they just immediately grabbed them, and they were being silver immediately.
And I was going to say, I assume Dorian took a personal interest and played it in personally.
You know what?
RTI,
the whole team. I think I think the whole thing of this project is team. It's the RTI team, actually. It's not just Doran and Don or whatever. It's Bryce and Devin, and it's everybody. It's Nick, who, is in the plating area, and everyone. I feel so fortunate that everyone cares so much about the shit that I do,
Well, someone was asking too, Grover, with those, were they in the front seat or the back seat when you're driving over to RTI?
They were in the back seat.
Really? I see. I would add them in the front with the seatbelt on, maybe. I don't know.
No, Chris packs those things amazing.
Yeah, and it had its own air conditioning vent.
And seatbelts too.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
So once you were able to locate the tapes, Grover, I mean, obviously you said it was about a year process. Is that normally sort of what it takes these days? I think the folks need to realize this too, because we always hear, "Oh, I want this record. I want to get this record. Tell Grover to get this. Tell Chris to do this. You know, why can't we have this album?" It's a long process. Even if you, I mean, you're not licensing it, right? You're working with Capitol on this one. So, how hard is it these days? Is it getting tougher?
No, I wouldn't say it's getting tougher. Although everybody's really busy right now. I will tell you that. Like the whole 1 billion vinyl thing is real, you know, and everybody's busy, you know. But I think in the case of this, we just kind of paused for a minute with his passing and everything. And then, you know, there was like there was just a lot of nuances to this particular record that took that long. The actual making of this record is lightning speed, to be honest. You know, I mean,
what's lightning speed to everyone? What's that mean to everyone?
I think Chris, I had test pressings in a day. I mean, that's kind of unheard of, right?
Yeah.
So
what about the jacket, the artwork? That takes a long time too, and
that takes the longest in a way.
Yeah.
I'm going to put that up right now, Grover. Is that okay?
Yes. Yeah, sure.
Let's start with this. I mean, everyone's probably seen this already, so we have that.
Well, it's interesting because when you look at that, right, you on the slipcase cover, you see there's no border on the right-hand side, right? But on the jacket, you see there is. And the reason there is because every time that the record's been in a gatefold, it's had that white border. So since this is actually a gatefold jacket, we decided to go down that road. And if you knew how many conversations the designer Paul and I had about this, it was unbelievable. So, and then I'm really stoked that we got to use the brother labels.
Yeah, that's very cool. Very cool.
That's the original cover. But so from the time that you're kind of really approving everything at the print house, GPA Global in this case, like they're rushing for us usually, but you know, it was like 7-8 weeks.
Wow.
which is pretty good actually.
That's quick.
It used to be a lot longer, you know. And then, like I was saying, I think everyone knew that this was like a steam engine coming, you know. So RTI really did me a solid. The timing just worked because keep in mind they had, you know, they're pressing D2, and so the test pressings are also on D2 vinyl, and they don't have a dedicated press 24/7, 7 days a week for D2 vinyl. It's a whole different setup. So it just turned out that the end of Lionel Richie was coming off. So the press was already set up, and that's how we got the test press so quickly.
Can you discuss what the difference is in the setup of the press to press that particular kind of vinyl? Do you know?
We would need Bryce or Adam on one of these Zooms. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's something to do with the dye, and you know, because that D2 vinyls, it is finicky. There's a lot of rejects on the D2 vinyl, right? Because you're going for perfect. You know,
that brings me another
cost too,
right? It's the cost. So you're paying, how much is this retail? This is $100 record, one-step retail. A lot of the cost, the vinyl formulation is a much higher cost in the formulation, and of course, in the plating, everything that goes into this than just a normal LP.
Everything about it. Think about it. It's 9X just in mastering. 9X. That doesn't even, you know, that's not counting setup time and all the listening we did. That's just the actual, like, getting it onto a lacquer. 9X, right? The compound's more expensive. The other thing is the compound, you know, because Casey and Don kind of developed it together over the years and everything. That's why RTI is able to do it. You know, you can't just take this compound and throw it into a new machine and think it's going to work. I can't explain it. We should try to beg Casey to come on sometime to talk about it. He's the real mastermind. You know, he's done, in my opinion, he's the guy that owns Neotech. And I think he's done as much for audiophile vinyl as anyone in recent memory. You know, he's put his own R&D into it, his own money to get these pellets a certain way. And that's why so many of these records sound amazing. You know, it's the compound. It starts there.
Was there ever a time where you thought, 33 versus 45 on this one? Did you ever think about it?
Not really. I mean, Levi and I talked about it in the early days a little bit, but it truthfully, not really. You know, I mean, the more records I do, the more I become more pure to what is there. You know, when we did Dookie at 45, Chris, I mean, it turned out amazing, but in retrospect, you know, it would have been really great at 33 and maybe a better listener experience. You know, I know that audiophile people really love it or whatever, and they think it's so much better and stuff. And
Some do.
You know, some
do.
Yeah, but I just don't. You know,
I don't want to have to stand up and turn the record over. Those are the people that really be standing up more often with this.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's good for you. It's exercise.
I always say a 45 RPM record is like you don't need a gym membership. Then you're up and down every 10 minutes or 12 minutes. It's not bad.
Yeah. First thing I do with a 45 RPM audiophile record is track it at 9624, side A, side B.
Would you ever think about the Definitive Sound Series and making like an SACD of these versions at all? Has that been in conversation?
1000%, actually.
Oh,
yeah.
I like to hear that. So that's a possibility going forward?
It's a real possibility, and I'm sort of in it now.
Ooh.
And going back with all the titles we've done as well. So that's on the things to do list for sure.
So that would mean then when Chris is mastering, Chris, are you just running a DS, like you're just recording it digitally as well while you're mastering? Is that how it happens there?
No, it'd be a separate pass at this point because we weren't sure it was happening.
Okay.
So
you run it again.
Do it again.
So you'd obviously use the same notes, run it again.
Yep. Okay. Same source, everything. Yeah. Except instead of going to the lathe, you go to the DSD.
That is exciting news, Grover.
Yeah. Yeah, we're working on that, and I need to just get focused a little more on it, you know, and do what everybody likes the idea. I've spoken to Gus, you know, all the things are lined up to do it, so we just need to get it over the line. You know, I even think it'd be interesting to do these on CD, honestly, but you know, years ago, Kevin and Steve Hoffman did like Joni Mitchell Blue when I first started doing these records in like 2006 or 7 or something. And with Blue and James Taylor and Moondance, Kevin ran a CD of the exact vinyl master. They're still the best sounding CDs. And so, yeah, that's, you know, CDs, man. I was at Amoeba a couple Saturdays ago. It was insane how many people were buying CDs.
That is insane.
Yeah, it's good. They're cheap.
So Michael, question for you. So after listening to this test press, and I have it, you have it, would you consider this the reference copy now, the definitive copy for any Beach Boy enthusiast? This Pet Sounds that Grover.
It's the most honest. It's the most honest rendering of what the Beach Boys wanted that they put out in '72 on Carl and the Passions. That's what they wanted, and this is just a better version of that, as opposed to something that was reimagined for now, which doesn't make any sense to me, because what they did in '72 is what they wanted, and it's what you can now get, but even better produced. So yeah, and I think if people, this is, first of all, this is not a high fidelity record in a lot of ways. It's not, you know, it's not. The way it was produced, it can't be a high fidelity record because of all the machinations that Brian Wilson put on the tape. But this is what he produced, and this is the most honest rendering of it, timbrally, tonally, and dynamically, because that's what they wanted. And if someone posted on my website, the compression is 2-to-1 on that tape.
How would anyone know what the compression was, Chris? That's impossible, right?
Of course not. But there's obviously some compression. You know, rock records don't really work well without some compression, right, Chris? They don't pop.
That is true.
You need them to pop.
Yeah, you need them to pop. And that gets back to another subject, which is selling reel-to-reel tapes. When you sell a flat master of a reel-to-reel tape, is that what you really want? How many rock records come from the tape comes to Chris, and forget about what you have to do to make it fit on a vinyl record, because you don't have to do that much compared to what people think. How much do you have to do to make a record sound good? Often there's a lot of stuff, a lot of craft that goes into making that tape sound good. And so if you make a flat copy of it and sell it to people, it's not that great.
So this is the Definitive Sound Series, Pet Sounds Beach Boys Mono Edition. And again,
Keyword definitive.
Definitive. I'm saying definitive. And again, and I mentioned this already, Michael, and I know I feel like there's no hype on the top end from what I'm listening. And I mentioned this, so it's the artificial push as well. No artificial push anywhere on this album on both sides.
Especially on the bottom. You know, some people are going to get this and they're going to go, "What happened to the bottom end? It doesn't have that."
It's smooth, it's balanced, and it really flows. Is how I would describe it.
Exactly. You don't notice it. That's what makes it great. You don't notice
That's a good way to describe that. I like that. You don't notice it. Yeah. What also too with the Neotech, Chris? I mean, the noise floor is so low, like just so low because of this vinyl compound. I think that's another treat on top of the fact that you got it. It's a one step. So you're so close to these master tapes with this whole process.
Yes. Yeah.
You really hear the layering of the vocals. The layering of the vocals.
Layering, yeah. I would say that.
Space is really amazing.
Grover, they're asking for Easter eggs already. What's going to be next for definitive? I don't think you're allowed to say anything. I know.
Headshot 2.0.
Yeah, there's lots of things in the works. That's all I can say. So I am gonna have lunch on Thursday in Athens. That could
Athens, Georgia, right? Not Athens, Greece.
That could be a little bit of an Easter egg, I suppose.
Hold on. So you're going to Athens to have lunch with an artist?
Manager.
Okay. That's not that hard.
Such a tease.
That's not that hard.
By the way, Murmur Chronic Town officially sold out. Thank you very much.
I love this. I love that record. Good stuff.
I think that's the biggest difference. That record has the biggest difference between the original and your version of it. It's crazy. And Greg Calby is a friend of mine, and he's a great mastering engineer. He must have slept through that.
What are you hearing? Well, I know this isn't an REM, but just quickly, just because this is sold out too, right?
It is sold out. There might be
unbelievable
somewhere, but I mean, it's sold out. Yeah.
SACD for this one now.
We got to get there for sure. That'd be a good idea. That's a really good idea.
Just quickly on that, Michael, I'm curious now. You're saying, what was the difference between the original then that I have the original? I have this one as well, and I definitely like the one step. What did you hear?
Yeah, well, the original sounds like it's a demo record.
Yeah,
and this one step version has all of what a real record should have. It's got dynamics. It's got really good bass. It's what the tape must have had all that, and somehow it didn't make it to the original record. But yeah, first play of that. What?
So we're in pre-order right now. So I'm going to put this. I want to put this back up here for everyone. This is the website here. Now, when will they get this to their house? When will this be delivered?
In shipping the middle of May 15th is the date it's going to ship. We're hustling to make sure that happens. Like I mentioned, it is going to ultimately be at retail as well. That'll probably be about a month later because we just can't get it to the distributor in time to get it everywhere. But we're doing 6,000. They're numbered. There will not be a repress. And they're all
pressed currently. You have them all done?
No. If they were done, we'd have no trouble. No, we're in the process.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. So, it's shop.capitalmusic.com. If I don't know if you can link from what you're showing or not, but yeah, it's just a Capital store. It's really easy to find and free shipping for now because it's over $60.
And that doesn't last. That won't be on there forever, right? The free shipping thing.
I don't think so. Not forever. Yeah. Not my thing, but I don't think it'll be forever.
I put the link up, so I think if you just click on it, it should go right to the website there for free shipping. I get a lot of this because being Canadian, will this be available in Canadian shops? Do you have an answer to that, Grover? I get a lot with the Universal stuff.
I'm not positive, but I believe these are US only for now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and then I saw another comment today, and I mean, I don't know who wants to answer this, but we had Universal's Vinylophile. They were coming out with the mono and the stereo. Now we're coming out with Definitive Sound Series, one step, all happening at once. What are the differences? What are the difference between the Universal Vinylophile, Michael, and the Definitive Sound Series? Tell us about that.
It's a different tape, and I don't know what Joe's design for it was, what he wanted to do with it. We'll have to listen to it and see what he did with it. But we can't say. It's not going to be a one step. It's going to be from a different source. And if it's the source that was used previously, it's not a great source. It's okay.
Mono, stereo.
The mono. Stereo will be fine because that tape is more recent and the tape's going to be in good shape. Yeah. I just don't care that much about stereo mix myself.
You know, vinyl file, the selections from Pet Sounds, you know, the mono stereo and vinyl file, the Zoetrope or whatever, you know, the video sort of record or whatever. That all sits inside of UME, right? And then all the Definitive Sound series is actually an initiative at Interscope Capital. So even though it's all universal and we all talk all the time, etc., it's not like anyone was in the dark that there were these two versions or all these were coming out at the same time. It was a little bit like that with Nat King Cole, but with this, it was very organized internally, you know, so everyone was supportive of.
No one was surprised.
No, and everyone was supportive. More important than surprised, they were actually really supportive of me doing this, right? Like using a different source and talking about it, you know. So, you know, same big company, different lanes.
I think when people fanatical buy both and compare them, it'll be interesting to see what their reaction is.
Yeah.
You know, you never know.
Yeah. And like I always say, it's the hobby that it's what makes all this so much fun, because everyone can have an opinion. Everyone can like what they like. They can diss what they diss. You know, they have different stereos. That, you know, everything's just different. It's an amazing.
It's fun. It's such a subjective, fun hobby. It's a lot of fun, and getting on shows like this and the other videos and, you know, all the websites and the forums. I mean, it's never ending. The debates are never ending. Oh, is the Bellman cut better than this? You know what I mean? It just goes on and on. It never ends, which is a lot of fun as well. You know.
You know, I will say one thing that's I did actually write some liner notes for this for the first time. We usually just do a straight reissue, but I felt this was so special that I actually wrote some notes. And in the first sort of, you know, first paragraph or whatever, you know, I talk about how there's a debate, mono versus stereo, original versus reissue, what reissue, what original. And I end up by saying, you know, I'm sure the debate will continue. And that's exactly what we're kind of seeing.
How you said, happy let the debates begin is what it ends. What you ended your essay with.
Yeah. And that's kind of what started happening as soon as Michael posted this morning. You know, the debate began, which I knew it would. It's fantastic.
I love it.
Yeah, it is great. And Chris, how what's happening now with vinyl? 30 years ago, did you ever imagine this was what was going to happen?
It's unbelievable. It's crazy. Bernie and I every day just look at each other and go, "Where the hell did all this come from?" It's amazing.
Well, I used to sit with 30 years ago with Joe Harley and say, "Joe, what are we?" You know, vinyl was dying at that point. We would sit there and the pulse was getting weaker and weaker. We said, "What are we going to do, Joe?" And we both said, "If we could just get kids to hear this and to get the experience of pulling a record off a shelf." If they could get that experience, that's all you have to do. You can't beat them over the head and try to sell them anything. You have to give them that experience. And once they hear whatever this is, whatever cutting a record does, whatever vinyl does to a signal, if they get to hear it and get the experience of looking over and seeing a bunch of records on a wall, they'll get it and they'll want it. And that's what happened. It's so great.
Yeah. And how about the amount of vinyl lounges and bars now?
Yeah,
I mean, it's going up. I was in Birmingham last week. There's an amazing one there. High Dive Hi-Fi. It's this beautiful restaurant. It's the guy must have spent $1 million. No joke. His 2-channel system's ridiculous. And then he's even got surround and Atmos. So he played me the Beach Boys, Pet Sounds, Atmos, the train at the end of the record, and it went around the whole room. It did. It wasn't my thing, but it was like, wow, what's
very important.
Yeah, you know, but yeah, there's the vinyl culture is just, I didn't think it could get much bigger, but it is way bigger.
Well, and all you gentlemen tonight are a big part of that vinyl culture. And I wanted to thank you, and everyone that's watching wanted to thank everyone, Chris Bellman, Michael Fremer, Grover Biery. Thank you for this, you guys. Great job. I'm excited about this. I mean, I have the test press. It sounds great. We're excited for the next Definitive Sound series, whatever that Easter egg will be in Athens, Georgia. I appreciate that, Grover, and everyone that's watching. I appreciate it. Love this record. Sounds good. Guys, good night. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Bye, you guys. Thank you, everyone.